On April the 5th, 1968, the body of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. began its journey home to Atlanta. Since his passing away, Dr. Martin Luther King has become the symbol and the embodiment of the civil rights movement. In 12 years, his leadership began the process of ending the system of segregation that was a shameful part of American history for over a century. His commitment and courage continues to inspire people across the entire world. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta at 501 Auburn Avenue on January 15, 1929. He was born in the Old South, in the heart of a thriving black community. He grew up in a divided world in which people knew their place and stayed there.
In many of the stores downtown, I could not go to a lunch counter to buy a hamburger or a cup of coffee. There was a very strict system of segregation, and there was nothing called racial integration at that time in Atlanta.
Dr. King spent his youth in this house, in an atmosphere of comfort and privilege. He was a sensitive and articulate child, with a passion for big words, and was quite able to talk himself out of any situation. Like many in Atlanta's middle class, money and status insulated him from the petty indignities of racial segregation. Dr. King's parents were beacons of this proud community, and his father was regarded as one of its leaders.
His father was a very powerful minister of the church in Atlanta. He was economically, he wasn't vastly wealthy, but he was certainly economically very secure. On a comparative basis to other black folk, he would be considered wealthy.
The childhood of his father, raised in the South, could not have been more different. His father was poor and illiterate. He was principled but unpolished, and then his father walked all the way to Atlanta and educated himself. Dr. King's father then married into one of the city's most powerful black communities.
The Kings were a very respectable family.
On a gray December morning in 1956, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. boarded the first of one of the newly integrated buses, and he took a seat where he wanted to. America would never be the same, and gave Martin his first victory. But it would also bring unforeseen complications, because he was now symbolized as a new kind of black man, and television would keep him in the public eye.
Suppose we begin this discussion by first asking you, Dr. King, in your estimation, what and who is this new Negro?
The new Negro is a person with a new sense of dignity and destiny, with a new self-respect. Along with that is this lack of fear which once characterized the Negro, this willingness to stand up courageously.
His new media profile brought him sympathetic listeners in powerful places, but segregation remained intact across the South.
He traveled the nation speaking about the successes of the bus boycott and hoping to find something that would suggest a breakthrough. However, segregationists were not the only ones threatened by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s approach.
Roy Wilkins, as executive secretary of the NAACP, not only perceived King's organization as a potential threat to the NAACP's role in the South, he also, perhaps inevitably, came to perceive King as a potential competitor, potential rival for personal stature within Black America.
I have a dream that one day Down in Alabama with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
This was the moment for which Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be remembered forever. The finest example of his powers as a public speaker and preacher, as a leader and visionary. On that day in August, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reached the peak of his popularity.
We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
The day after this speech, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was shot and murdered at this motel. And over the years, layers of mystery and conjecture would settle upon this horrific moment. Reviled by many at the time of his death, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has become a national hero, the great martyr of the civil rights movement. His every insight has acquired the weight of truth with the passing of time. His every fear has come to pass as well. He asked America to live up to its ideals. He died for a dream to which this nation still aspires.